to me, this is a pretty important one that we're going to do tonight because um, I think we need to honor those from a long time ago and those that are with us, with us today. Um, and you want me to just jump right in, Jeff?
Yeah, jump right in. I know the first thing. I mean, I'm sure you have this in your list, but is kind of the description of what would get you the Medal of Honor. I'm assuming we wanted to cover that because it's very specific and awesome. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
incredible just to hear the description of what it was required.
Go to cmohs.org. Okay.
Congressional Medal of Honor Society.
Yep. Yep. And go ahead, Jeff, and let's see. Scroll down to the bottom, I believe. That's where it has kind of the requirements. And actually, before we go into the medal itself, I think that's where it'll tell you. But
Yeah.
before we go into that, let me kind of just give you actually a little bit of background. We'll go into
Go
that
ahead.
and then we'll do some other stuff. But there have been 3,547 medals that were awarded to people. The Medal of Honor was created in 1861 and only included the Navy at the beginning. And then they added the Army. And so the Army and Navy were both eligible to receive after 1863. So this all started in the Civil War. Today, we have 61 living Medal of Honor recipients. And they're all from the Vietnam War or later. We lost our last Korean War Medal of Honor winner, I believe it was a couple years ago. So we're losing a lot of we've lost a lot of the, our history, our past. Yeah. So I think this is good to kind of go through some of that stuff. There are actually only 3,528 Medal of Honor recipients because 19 of them won it twice. So, and of those 19 that won it twice, 14 were for separate engagements. Some individuals won 2 in the same engagement. So World War I, for example, let's say, and there was a guy that did this. I don't think it was one of the ones that I chose for the stream here, but the gentleman attacked a machine gun nest of Germans with his bayonet, his fixed bayonet, didn't fire a shot, took that nest, and then went and got another one. So he did that without firing a shot. That was all with a fixed bayonet. So that would be somebody that received 2 for kind of in the same battle. And in 1917, they made it a little bit more stringent. And Jeff, that's where we'll go into what you need to do to get the medal today to earn it. And the other thing to kind of understand is about 20% of the people that receive these medals receive them posthumously, which means most likely that they were killed accomplishing what they won the medal for.
Right.
So after 1917, let me just jump back to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
66% of the medals were between the Civil War and the end of World War I. So when they tightened that up in 1917, it became even more amazing if you were awarded if you were awarded or received the Medal of Honor. So go ahead, Jeff, and kind of go through the criteria if you don't mind.
Okay, I will. It says the standards to award the Medal of Honor have evolved over time, but the medal has always stood for actions that go above and beyond. The current criteria were established in 1963 during the Vietnam War. The medal is authorized for any military service member who, distinguishes himself conspicuously by gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. And then there's 3 bullet points. It says, while engaged in action against an enemy of the United States, while engaged in military operations involving conflict with an opposing foreign force, or while serving with friendly foreign forces engaged in armed conflict against an opposing armed force in which the United States is not a belligerent party. All recommendations require, through reports on the act itself, the battlefield and its setting, at least 2 sworn eyewitness statements and any other compelling evidence that can be gathered. Recommendation packets must be approved all the way up the military command structure, ending with the United States President as the commander in chief. By federal statute, recommendations for the medal must be submitted within 3 years of the Valorous Act, and the medal must be presented within 5 years. Any submissions outside of this timeline require an act of Congress to waive the time limits. And I believe that's all of it right there.
Yeah. So you got to do some pretty incredible stuff to walk away with one of these.
Yes.
And so let me just kind of, and again, I told you 66% were awarded before World War One. In the Civil War, there were 1,522 that were awarded, 110 in the Spanish-American War, 124 in World War One, 464 in World War Two, 133 in Korea, 246 in Vietnam, and 14 in the War on Terror. And that includes Afghanistan and Iraq. So as you can see, as time has gone on, the medal is more, different to, or more difficult to receive. So I wanted to do this today for a few reasons, but one is I wanted folks to, yesterday was Medal of Honor Day. And I wanted folks to have some time to think about what these folks and the other people in the military have done for us. And I want to go through a few battles, if I might.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully some of them will, some places, and hopefully some of these places will ring a bell. But in the Civil War, we had soldiers that fought at places like Antietam and Bull Run twice, and Gettysburg. In the Spanish-American War, we fought in the Philippines, and I think the most well-known is San Juan Hill. In World War One, we fought at places called Belleau Woods, St. Mihiel, and the Meuse-Argonne Offensive. World War II, we fought at Pearl Harbor, Midway, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, against Japan in the Pacific. And then in Europe, we fought at Normandy, Malmedy, the Kasserine Pass, and other locations in Germany, Berlin, or actually not Berlin, excuse me, on the way to Berlin. In Korea, we fought at the Chosun Reservoir, a place called Hagaru-ri. We set up the Pusan perimeter, and we took we reasserted ourselves at Incheon during that invasion. In Vietnam, there was the A Shau Valley, An Lo, and Dak To. And in the War on Terror, we fought at the Baghdad airport, Kandahar, Tora Bora, Takur Gar, and the Kunar province. So these are all places where American soldiers fought and died. And some of these Medal of Honor winners fought as well. So hopefully some of those places kind of ring a bell to folks. But that's those are some of the places that allowed us to be what we are today, a free country, free nation. So Jeff, go ahead and hit that Medal of Honor museum video, please. Ooh. You went. You're silent to me now.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now. Sorry.
Reset so that I could get the screen to come up. It just wasn't working.
Okay.
But we're good now. I got a question in the chat that came
Yeah.
through, and it said,
Okay.
"Who received the last Medal of Honor and for what?" And that's from Icy FPS.
Icy, those were, I think, President Biden right before he left office. And I don't recall the last folks that received them, but there should be a tab for recent
I do have
winners,
that.
Jeff.
Pulling it up here.
Yeah, let's bring that up.
And we have 11 most recent presentations of the Medal
And,
of Honor.
and these are folks that were bypassed in earlier conflicts. So
we have Richard Cavazos. I'm assuming that's the most recent. For Korea. And we could pull him up here. It shows rank, first lieutenant, highest rank general, conflict, Korean War, unit command, Company E, 2nd Battalion, 65th Infantry Regiment, 3D Infantry Division, U.S. Army. His action date was June 14th through 15th, 1953. And it shows citation here. First Lieutenant Richard E. Cavazos distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as company commander, Company E, 2nd Battalion, 65th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division on June 14th and 15th, 1953, in the vicinity of Sagemak, Korea. On the night of June 14th, First Lieutenant Cavazos led his company in a raid on an entrenched enemy outpost with the mission of destroying the personnel and installation thereon. During the initial attack, First Lieutenant Cavazos led his men through intense enemy mortar and artillery fire. Upon entering the trenches, fierce close combat ensued, for which First Lieutenant Cavazos directed heavy fire on the enemy and their positions. When an extremely intense enemy mortar and artillery barrage hit his position, First Lieutenant Cavazos withdrew the company and regrouped his men. Twice more, he led his men through intense enemy fire and assaults on the enemy position, destroying vital enemy fortifications and personnel. During the entire assault, First Lieutenant Cavazos gave effective commands and words of encouragement to his men, and by his personal example and leadership inspired them to heroic heights of achievement. When ordered to withdraw his company, First Lieutenant Cavazos complied but remained alone on the enemy outpost to search for missing men. Although exposed to enemy fire, First Lieutenant Cavazos located 5 battle casualties and evacuated each one by one to a point on a reverse slope of a nearby hill where they could be safely recovered by friendly forces. Returning to the battlefield, he found a small group of men who had become separated from the main assaulting force and personally led them to safety. When informed that there were men still missing, First Lieutenant Cavazos again returned to the scene of the battle, where he located and led another small group of men to safety. First Lieutenant Cavazos then made 2 more unassisted trips to the battlefield searching for missing soldiers. Not until he was personally satisfied the battlefield was cleared on the morning of the 15th did he allow treatment of his own combat wounds sustained during action. First Lieutenant Cavazos' conspicuous gallantry, extraordinary heroism, and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. It says awarded posthumously, so he had passed away by the time they gave it to him.
Yeah. He I believe he survived the war, though. I think he passed later on after he got home.
Yeah, it shows January 3rd, 2025 at the White House. Joseph Biden. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the one that presented
Yep.
the award.
Yep. Yeah. So that's good. Okay. So I'm gonna take you
Go back.
guys take you guys
Uh,
on hopefully a little bit of a journey. Um, Jeff, let's go into the notes and
okay.
pull up Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. I'm going to tell a little. I'm going to tell a little Darmac story, kind of real quick.
Okay.
But actually, you know what? Kind of before I do that, I think I want to read a letter from Abraham Lincoln, and
Okay.
it talks kind of about sacrifice. And this is Lincoln writing a letter to a mother that lost 5 of her children in the Civil War. And it starts out, Dear Madam, I have been shown in the files of the War Department a statement of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts that you are the mother of 5 sons who have died gloriously on the field of battle. I feel how weak and fruitless must be any word of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering you the consolation that may be found in the thanks of the Republic they died to save. I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost, and the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Yours very sincerely and respectfully, Abraham Lincoln. And I
Wow.
think that, yeah, it's pretty deep. I think that kind of shows what what the soldiers potentially have going through their minds. And I have not been a soldier. I know that we have some in here. I wasn't planning too slappy, but we can probably talk about the Sullivan brothers a little bit towards the end. Um, uh, but what the families go through, the Gold Star families that we talk about and we hear about. I thought that was I mean, what do you say to somebody that lost 5 sons? And that happened again in World War II, as Slappy mentioned the Sullivan brothers. So, but let's go ahead and jump to Joshua Chamberlain.
All right. I got him pulled up here.
Yep. All right. I'm going to pull him up too real quick. So a little Darmac story. I was about, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old going into junior high. And I was given a book to read for school called The Killer Angels. And it was a story about the battle of Gettysburg, battle at Gettysburg. And I think this made me want to study history more because Chamberlain and I'll read the citation, but Chamberlain was a great leader, as somebody said in the chat. Chamberlain was on Little Round Top, which was on one of the flanks, and they had repelled numerous attacks throughout the day, and it came to the point where they had very little ammunition left. They were at the top of this. It was a hill, so they had some advantage, but they heard the rebel yell at the bottom, and the men, Chamberlain and his men, were there, and I'm thinking like, oh man, get the hell out of there. But that's not what he did. He told his men to fix their bayonets because they didn't have the ammunition that they needed. And they charged down the hill and routed those coming up the hill and saved the Union flank, which allowed the Union to win the Battle of Gettysburg. So that, I think, started me on my way Um, I'll read a citation real quick. Daring heroism and great tenacity in holding his position on the Little Round Top against repeated assaults and carrying the advanced position on the Great Round Top. So this is an amazing guy. He was a college professor at the beginning. Before the war, he became a college president, and I believe at one point he was the governor of Maine. So he led a pretty full life there. So that's Joshua Chamberlain.
And then not awarded posthumously. So
No.
that's definitely cool when they can.
Yeah. He
live.
he passed after the turn of the century, I believe.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
So yeah, he lived a good life after that. So yeah, he passed away in 1914. All right, Jeff, let's go to the next one. And I chose this one because this gentleman, Bernard John Dowling Irwin, in chronologically was the first person to receive the Medal of Honor.
Wow.
We'll go. Yeah. So he was the first one to chronologically receive the medal, earn the medal. There was another gentleman actually named Jacob Parrott that received the first medal itself, but chronologically, Irwin, February 13, 1861, at Apache Pass, Arizona, voluntarily took command of the troops, and attacked and defeated hostile Indians he met on the way. Surgeon Irwin volunteered to go to the rescue of Second Lieutenant George N. Bascom, 7th Infantry, who with 60 men were trapped by the Chiricahua Apaches under Cochise. Irwin and 14 men, not having horses, began on the 100-mile march riding mules. After fighting and capturing Indians, recovering stolen horses and cattle, he reached Bascom's column and helped break the siege. He survived and was presented this medal on January 24th of 1849. I think one of the really, really cool things about a lot of these folks earlier in our country's history, he was born in Ireland. So he was an immigrant, and he jumped right in and for his new country and defended it.
No, that is amazing. I mean, we've talked about that with some of our people. Armando, I've talked about him a million times, and I'll always talk about him. So he came here, first generation from Cuba, with all that, and then immediately, I mean, the man's whole skeletal structure is red, white, and blue at this point. And then I have family that immigrated from Mexico, and my uncle joined the Marine Corps, and my grandfather from Mexico was like over the moon proud of him and so grateful, so happy that his son served this country, and then his son became a Marine as well, which was really cool, just generally for the family. So I like the stories of the immigrants that come. There's the I think I read it out to you guys on one of the thought casts, but it was Teddy Roosevelt talking about the immigrant generally, that you can be absolutely American as an immigrant as long as you basically pledge allegiance to the one country only. And yeah, that people like this definitely embody that principle.
Yeah, and there was a number of Irish and other nationalities that served rather well during the Civil War. And we'll talk about some other ones a little bit later on. All right, let's go to the next one. I think you guys will remember or will recognize this name, but it's not the person that you're thinking about. This is General George Custer, his brother, Thomas Custer, who he is one of the double recipients of the Medal of Honor.
I'm just waiting. I clicked it. I'm just.
Nope,
Come on,
you're
buddy.
good. I can go ahead because we've got 2 to go through, but I'll go ahead.
You're good now. It popped.
Okay. The first award was he captured the flag on April 2nd of 1865. And let's see, sorry. April 2nd, 1865. Willicomac, Virginia, at the, I'm not going to be able to say that, Namazine Church. He went and he captured one of the colors from a Confederate outfit, and he died June 25th, 1876, with his brother at Little Bighorn, Montana. And then let's go ahead and jump kind of to the second one here. I think they give a little bit more detail on this one, as I recall. Not much.
Is it a different?
Yeah, it's a different one. It's April 6, 1865. So it's 3 or 4 days later. And Second Lieutenant Custer leaped his horse over the enemy works and captured 2 stands of color, having his horse shot from under him and receiving a severe wound. So the 6th Michigan Cavalry was a very solid cavalry during the Civil War. They acquitted themselves very nicely. And again, this is George Custer's little brother. All right. All right, let's see. Yep, let's go to the next one. We're going to jump to the Spanish-American War. And I think you guys will recognize this person. This is Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, so a future president earned a Medal of Honor. July 1st, 1898 at San Juan Hill in Cuba as a member of the 1st U.S. Volunteer Cavalry Regiment, or the Rough Riders, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt distinguished himself by acts of bravery on the 1st of July, 1898, near Santiago de Cuba, Republic of Cuba, while leading a daring charge up San Juan Hill. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt, in total disregard for his personal safety and accompanied by only 4 or 5 men, led a desperate and gallant charge up San Juan Hill, encouraging his troops to continue the assault through withering enemy fire over open company. Facing the enemy's heavy fire, he displayed extraordinary bravery throughout the charge and was the first to reach the enemy trenches, where he killed one of the enemy with his pistol, allowing his men to continue the assault. His leadership and valor turned the tide in the battle for San Juan Hill. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt's extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.
That is awesome.
Teddy and the Rough Riders, right?
I knew he was a Rough Rider, but I did not know that he was a Medal of Honor recipient. I didn't know that. So that's incredible.
Yeah, he was, and I think I think that you'll find out later that some of that heroism may have run in the family. So we'll talk about that. I think when we get to World War II.
Okay, great.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump to World War One, and our first. This one really kind of struck me. Our first one is Private William Henry Johnson. Uh, this is May 15th, 1918, 93rd Division, 93rd Infantry Division, American Expeditionary Forces in the Argonne Forest in France. So, Private Johnson, Henry Johnson, distinguished himself by extraordinary acts of heroism at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a member of Company C, the 369th Infantry Regiment, 93rd Infantry Division, American Expeditionary Force on May 15, 1918, during combat operations against the enemy on the front lines of the Western Front in France. In the early morning hours, Private Johnson and another soldier were on sentry duty at a forward outpost when they received a surprise attack from a German raiding party consisting of at least 12 soldiers. While under intense enemy fire and despite receiving significant wounds, Private Johnson mounted a brave retaliation resulting in several enemy casualties. When his fellow soldier was badly wounded and being carried away by the enemy, Private Johnson exposed himself to grave danger by advancing from his position to engage the two enemy captors in hand to hand combat. Wielding only a knife and gravely wounded himself, Private Johnson continued fighting, defeating the two captors and rescuing the wounded soldier. Displaying great courage, he continued to hold back the larger enemy force until the defeated enemy retreated behind a large cache of weapons and equipment and providing valuable intelligence. Without Private Johnson's quick actions and continued fighting, even in the face of almost certain death, the enemy might have succeeded in capturing prisoners and the outpost without abandoning valuable intelligence. Private Johnson's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, Company C of the 369th Infantry Regiment, the 93rd Infantry Division, and the United States Army. And let's see.
That one I see was awarded posthumously.
Yeah, posthumously awarded.
Posthumously.
Yeah.
I freaking.
No, it's okay. You're good. Now he survived the battle,
Cool.
but did not get. Yeah, but he was awarded this by President Obama
In 2015.
in 2000. Yeah, he passed away in 1929. So, you know.
So that would have taken the act of Congress because of timing, right? Is
correct.
that
Yeah.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. Okay. Iraq.
Yeah, basically, I'm seeing in the chat basically that the special forces type stuff is not really counted in the same way for medals because a lot of it is kind of behind secrecy and the tactics and all that. So they're not giving a full brief on that stuff.
I think we're going to talk a little bit about some special forces folks that were identified, and but but I understand that a lot of the things that they do never happened. So,
Right.
and those are the types of folks that maybe years down the road will be recognized, hopefully. All right, let's continue with World War One.
All right.
And
And we're here. We got
yep,
Matich or Matt.
no, Fred William Stockham.
Oh, okay. I'm on the wrong guy. Hang on a second.
That's okay.
Fred Williams. Oh, yeah, there we go. Let's see him.
All right, yep. So Fred William Stockham uh, was was in the Bellow Woods. In I think that's one of the first kind of real pitched battles that our soldiers were in, and were against a much more experienced and well outfitted German soldiers. So I found this one to be unbelievable too. During an immense enemy bombardment with high explosive and gas shells, which wounded or killed many members of the company, Gunnery Sergeant Stockham, upon noticing that the gas mask of a wounded comrade was shot away, without hesitation removed his own gas mask and insisted upon giving it to the wounded man, well knowing that the effects of gas would be fatal to himself. He continued with undaunted courage and valor, to direct and assist the evacuation of wounded until he himself collapsed from the effects of gas, dying as a result thereof a few days later. His courageous conduct undoubtedly saved the lives of many of his wounded comrades, and his conspicuous gallantry and the spirit of self sacrifice were a source of great inspiration to all who served with him. So that action took place June 13th and 14th. He died June 22nd. So he had a miserable existence for about a week,
Yeah.
because that's a terrible
It's
way
a
to die.
horrible way to die.
Terrible way to die. And uh, I can't even imagine. Um,
So definitely posthumously. Now that I
yeah, posthumously. Yeah, he was awarded posthumously. All right, let's go to our next guy here, Matij Kosak,
Matich.
World War One. All right, this is kind of another one that I noticed, that this gentleman uh, was born in. I can't even pronounce the name of that. I don't know what that is, but that's not in the United States. So I'm thinking it's somewhere kind of Central Europe.
Soysons?
Yeah,
I'll be the one to butcher it for you.
yeah.
So,
So
anyway,
he I don't. I think I did. I miss one. So he was also a dual um, Medal of Honor winner, and his was on the day of the was the same battle. Uh, and there's a note below here: 2 immigrants plus 1 battle equal 4 medals of honor. So he and another gentleman, I forgot his name. We should probably look that up. Um, were dual winners, or not winners. That's wrong. Dual recipients
I
of
got
the
it
Medal
for
of
you right
Honor.
here. It's
Thanks.
Matej, Kozak, and Luis Kukela.
Where was Luis born?
Luis, let's see.
I
So
think
Maciek was from the town of Egbel in Austro-Hungarian
Austria.
Empire.
Okay.
And then let's see, where's this other guy? Uh,
I want to see. He was like Romania or someplace.
I mean, it should be in here somewhere. It's the other guy. Here it is. Here he is. His friend, okay, he was an immigrant born in the kingdom of Dalmatia, part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is now city of Split, Croatia.
Okay.
So, it's a
So
prior
okay.
territory.
So they came from. So they fought against their homelands. The Austro-Hungarian Empire fought on the
That's
side of the
right.
Germans. So, all right. So let me go ahead and we'll receive both the Army. Okay, so he actually received an Army Medal of Honor and a Navy Medal of Honor, which I believe the other gentleman did as well. The Naval Medal of Honor for extraordinary heroism while serving the 66th Company, 5th Regiment, 2nd Division in action in the Villers-Cotterêts section of South Saison, France in 18 July 1918, where a hidden machine gun nest halted the advance of his battalion. Sergeant Kosak went forward alone, unprotected by covering fire, and worked his way in between the German positions in the face of heavy enemy fire. Rushing the enemy positions with his bayonet, he drove off the crew. Later the same day, Sergeant Kosak organized French colonial soldiers who had become separated from their company and led them in attack on another machine gun nest, which was put out of action. Let's see. Yes. So he died later in the war. He died about a month before the war ended, and he received his award posthumously. So he died October 4th, 1918. The war ended on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So, pretty amazing.
Yeah. Looks like we're on to World War II now.
Yeah, we're on to World War II. Let's see. Let's go ahead and play that. Let's see, Jeff. Let me make sure I tell you to play the right one. I've got it marked as, let's see, it's under number 3. It's number 2.
Is it in video clips?
Yes, it's in video clips.
Okay. Under number 3, you said?
Yeah, number 2, Battle of the Bulge.
I'm here.
I had to take some prisoners back.
Yep.
Gotta wait for the presentation screen to catch up. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to take some prisoners back to the command post. And this lieutenant said to me, Coyle, he said, get rid of them. And I wasn't sure whether I heard him right when he said, get rid of them. What did he really mean? Well, I took about 14 prisoners back, hands up, knee behind them. And the thought crossed my mind, did he really want me to do anything? That I took them back, and I thought if I killed them, I would have been court-martialed. But I read later on, and maybe you heard about this, that massacre in Malmedy, where the Germans just lined up and massacred 100 field artillery troops with no compunctions at all. And it crossed my mind, did I do the right thing? Or if I'd known then, would I just opened up and left 14 of them on the ground? Well, I wrestle with it once in a while.
So that took place in during the Battle of the Bulge. There was a massacre by German panzer units. General Piper from the German side led his troops. They met at a crossroads with an observation unit, an artillery observation unit of about 100 people, and they were not very well armed. They were not ready for a firefight. They engaged the Germans, who had Panzer tanks, and quickly surrendered. And later in the day, the Germans basically surrounded them with trucks with machine guns on them and unloaded on all of them. There were several people that were able to get away and share the information, but for the people that there were people that tried to play dead on the ground, thinking that the Germans wouldn't do anything. The Germans went around with a Luger and put a bullet in the back of each one of their heads while they were on the ground, everybody, to make sure that there were no witnesses. So this guy's talking about when he found out. Well, when everybody started to hear what happened at Malmedy,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't giving up anymore. They decided that I'm going to fight to the death. So the Germans really made it a lot harder on themselves. Again, another quick story. My grandfather had a friend who was in the he was a Scot, and he was in the Scottish Highlanders, one of their divisions. He was north of Malmedy, fighting for General Montgomery, and his position was overrun. Now, they had heard about what happened at Malmedy, but he had no other choice but to lay down and play dead. And he actually told me this when I was about 16 or 17 years old. He had cancer and was about to die, knew I loved history. And he basically laid there for about 36 hours in the snow, wounded, didn't move until the Brits retook that area, and he survived. So he knew about Malmedy, but he had no other choice. He just laid there in the snow. So
I have to pause it so we can lock for the premium
go for
because
it.
we've hit the
Yeah.
time. But yes, so anyone who's watching this, for Deep Thoughts, we do the first hour on the free show, and then the second half of it is locked to premium. So join Rumble Premium, get all the free ads, or all the ads free, excuse me, and then unlimited access to all the premium content. But we're going to leave you with that right now. All right, we're updated. Should be good to go. And actually, just hitting the chat here before we go to the next. I'm seeing.
I see.
Yep, I see Icy. See Producer K says these are men with true courage, a distinction few can honestly claim these days. And thank you for the 2-minute warning, by the way, because I would have just blown right past it. And then Icy says, I'm not a history buff. This has been super educational on history of our vets. My great uncle, Garland Dwayne Jackson, was in the Army as well, died from a grenade in Vietnam. Yeah, I mean, every time I read about things like this and hear about things like this, it makes me think like two things. Like, one, I should be doing more. And then two, just that, like, it makes me feel a little bit bad. Like, the best of us already happened. You know, they talk about the greatest generation with the Americans that went and fought and, you know, took back Normandy and all that. And I believe it. Whenever I hear stuff like this, it really kind of just makes me feel not good about the state of the world and the Americans that are currently inhabiting the land. So, you know, it's good and bad because, you know, hopefully we can strive for better, but it definitely stings when I read like how absolutely selfless, courageous, and just kind of amazing these people were, and I just don't feel it.
And Icy, thank you to your family. Sorry for the loss, and you know, it's a tough thing, but thank you for his service and his sacrifice for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're on.
Let's see. Sylvester.
Sylvester Antilak.
All right. Let's get him up here.
All right. So this happened in. I tried to get from different areas of the war for World War II. But this happened in Italy, near Cisterna di Littoria in Italy. Um, Sergeant Antillac charged 200 yards over flat, coverless terrain to destroy an enemy machine gun nest during the second day of an offensive which broke through the German cordon of steel around the Anzio beachhead. Fully 30 yards in advance of his squad, he ran into withering enemy machine gun, machine pistol, and rifle fire. 3 times he was struck by bullets and knocked to the ground, but each time he struggled to his feet and continued his relentless advance. With one shoulder deeply gashed and his right arm shattered, he continued to rush directly into the enemy fire concentration with his submachine gun wedged under his uninjured arm until within 15 yards of an enemy strong point, where he opened fire at deadly close range, killing 2 German forces and forcing the remaining 10 to surrender. He reorganized his men and, refusing to seek medical attention so badly needed, he chose to lead the way to another strong point 100 yards distant. Utterly disregarding the hail of bullets concentrated upon him, he had stormed ahead nearly 3/4 of the space between the 2 strongholds when he was instantly killed by hostile enemy fire. Inspired by his example, his squad went on to overwhelm the enemy troops. By his supreme sacrifice and superb fighting courage and heroic devotion to the attack, Sergeant Antillac was directly responsible for eliminating 20 Germans, capturing an enemy machine gun, and clearing the path for his company to advance.
It's incredible. And Dagnar in the chat says that would have been a grease gun, most likely. Yeah, I would say. And the grease guns were pretty awesome. Like one of the early sub guns our guys carried. Yeah. So, getting to 15 yards away, and then he would definitely be able to scare the shit out of them. And it said what? He killed 2 and then got the other 10 to surrender or something, basically solo.
Yeah.
Man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, solo. So I know we got it. I hear you, Steve. I mean, words aren't violence, right? But let's go to Jonathan Mayhew Wainwright.
Got it.
Jonathan Mayhew Wainwright distinguished himself by intrepid and determined leadership against greatly superior enemy forces. He was the general left by Douglas MacArthur to hold out at Corregidor in the Philippines. At the repeated risk of life above and beyond the call of duty in his position, he frequented the firing line of his troops, where his presence provided the example and incentive that helped make the gallant efforts of these men possible. The final stand on beleaguered Corregidor, for which he was in important measure personally responsible, commanded the admiration of the nation's allies. It reflected the high morale of American arms in the face of overwhelming odds. His courage and resolution were vitally needed inspiration to the then sorely pressed freedom-loving people of the world. Wainwright was a thin man going into that battle. Those men left Corregidor as skeletons. Wainwright, the word is that MacArthur was livid with Wainwright surrendering, and then right on the I forget the name of the ship, but when the Japanese were surrendering, Wainwright was there and went in to meet with MacArthur beforehand. He had just been released as a prisoner of war, and MacArthur saw him and everything changed. Wainwright took the sword of the surrendering general on the naval ship. Wainwright led his men, and as all these men are, he was a hero. But he provided a lot of courage, and sorry, that one gets to me a little bit.
No, that's totally fine.
So
I've been struggling along while you're reading them. So
yeah,
no, I definitely.
yeah. All right, let's
that.
let's
To
go
Joe.
to Joe P. Martinez. He was a private, and Joe P. Martinez died defending Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. Not a lot of people know that we actually had Japanese soldiers on American soil in
Didn't
World
know
War
that.
II. Yep. So he was, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action with the enemy. Over a period of several days, repeated efforts to drive the enemy from a key position high in the snow-covered, precipitous mountains between east arm of Holt's Bay and Chighoff Harbor had failed. On 26 May 1943, troop dispositions were readjusted, and a trial coordinated attack on this position by a reinforced battalion was launched. Initially successful, the attack hesitated in the face of severe and hostile machine gun fire, rifle, and mortar fire. Private Martinez, an automatic rifleman, rose to his feet and resumed his advance. Occasionally, he stopped to urge his comrades on. His example inspired others to follow. After a most difficult climb, Private Martinez eliminated resistance from part of the enemy position by the BAR fire and hand grenades, thus assisting the advance of other attacking elements. This success only partially completed the action. The main Holtz-Chikov Pass rose about 150 feet higher, flanked by steep rocky ridges, and reached a snow-filled defile. The passage was barred by enemy fire from either flank from tiers of snow trenches in front. Despite these obstacles and knowing of their existence, Private Martinez again led troops on and up, personally silencing several trenches with the BAR fire and ultimately reaching the pass itself. Here, just below the knife-like rim of the pass, Private Martinez encountered a final enemy-occupied trench, and as he was engaged in firing into it, he was mortally wounded. The pass, however, was taken, and its capture was an important preliminary to the end of organized hostile resistance on the island. And that action took place 11 November 1943. So he died defending American soil.
Yeah, I definitely did not know we had battled in Alaska, the Japanese.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's crazy. Say Reese says your dad served in World War II. That's awesome. Your father-in-law served in Korea.
All right, let's go. I think we're going to go to another Roosevelt, aren't we?
Theodore Jr.
Theodore Roosevelt Jr., Brigadier General, 4th Infantry Division, Normandy invasion, June 6, 1944.
Wow.
For gallantry, and hang on a second, he was pretty damn old. He was in his mid to late 50s, I think. So for gallantry and intrepidity, and at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty on 6 June 1944 in France, after 2 verbal requests to accompany the leading assault elements in the Normandy invasion had been denied, Brigadier General Roosevelt's written request for the mission was approved, and he landed with the first wave of forces assaulting the enemy-held beaches. He repeatedly led groups from the beach over the seawall and established them inland. His courage and presence in the very front of the attack and his complete unconcern at being under heavy fire inspired the troops to heights of enthusiasm and self-sacrifice. Although the enemy had the beach under constant direct fire, Brigadier General Roosevelt moved from one locality to another, rallying men around him, directed and personally led them against the enemy. Under his seasoned, precise, calm, and unfaltering leadership, assault troops reduced beach strong points and rapidly moved inland with minimal casualties. He thus contributed substantially to the successful establishment of the beachhead in France. And let's see, a couple days, 6 days later, he had a massive heart attack and died in France. So he was awarded his medal posthumously. I think he had to go to Eisenhower to be permitted to land with the first wave.
As the prior president's son, they were just like,
Yep.
yeah, you're not doing that. There's no way. And then, yeah, he
was in kind of bad shape too. Yeah. So, yeah, that was part of it. All right, let's go to the video clips, Jeff.
Okay.
And let's go up to number 3, which is above number 2, which doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. We're going to talk about Desmond Doss. I think some of you may have seen a movie with him in it, about him.
My dad bought this 10 Commandments in Lois Pratt Illustrated on a nice frame. And I had looked at that picture of the 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill. There's a picture had Cain had killed his brother Abel. And I wonder how in the world could a brother do such a thing? I've pictured Christ as saving life. I want to be like Christ. I was saving life instead of taking life. And that's the reason I take up medicine.
Desmond Doss was drafted into the Army in April 1942. He wanted to serve his country, but electing not to bear arms, the Virginia native instead joined the Army Medical Corps. Assigned to the U.S. invasion of Okinawa, where deeply entrenched Japanese forces hammered American troops from caves and tunnels, Doss and his battalion were ordered to assault a jagged 400-foot escarpment overrun with Japanese defenders.
Japanese had been there for years. They had that honeycomb and camouflage to look like natural terrain. And that's what we had to face. So I remember 8 or 9 of those Japanese positions we destroyed before we contacted A Company. And when the day was done, I didn't have a single man killed. The next day, we thought the big job was done, but instead, everything we was trying to stay went wrong. We threw all types of high explosive demolition on the Japanese position. We decided it was only one thing left to do. We had 35 gallons of high-octane gasoline and 5-gallon Army water cans. 2 men got a hose, opened the can, let up. 2 of them literally threw it over the bank. The ammunition dump must have gone off. That whole mountain just seemed to anything to be able to start it. But to our surprise, out came these Japanese from both sides for us.
Showering Doss's battalion with artillery, mortar, and machine gun fire, the Japanese drove the majority of the group back down the face of the escarpment. But dozens of casualties were still left behind.
I had these men up there, and I shouldn't leave them. They were my buddies. Some of my men were families, and they trusted me. I didn't feel like I should value my life above my buddies. And so I decided to stay with them and take care of as many of them as I could. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Doss remained to tend the wounded, dragging them to the cliff's edge and attempting to lower them down the escarpment.
But I didn't have enough rope to do the job like it should be done. Then the Lord brought to my mind that knot I learned in West Virginia I'd never seen or heard of before.
Relying on his childhood experience rescuing flood victims, Doss fashioned a special sling that enabled him to lower the men one by one to safety.
So I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more, until there was none left. And I was the last one down.
By nightfall, he had managed to rescue 75 fallen comrades.
It was 15 of us got the medal that day. When my time came, I went up. President Trump, man, he came up and he stepped over the line and caught me by my hand and shook my hand like an old-time friend, somebody been knowing all his life. He didn't even give me a chance to get nervous. When you had explosives and bullets so close you could practically feel it and not get wounded up there when I should have been killed a number of times, I know who I owe my life to as well as my men. That's why I like to tell this story to the glory of God, because I know from a human standpoint I should not be here. You can't always win. But when your buddies come to you and say they owe their life to me, what better reward can you get than that?
Amazing.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Responsible for 75 lives. Let's go ahead and let me go ahead and bring him up, and let's bring his page up. Let's see. I think we know kind of, and that was on Okinawa. So that was Japanese homeland. So they fought like hell for that. I'm not going to go through that because I think the video did a good job, if that's okay with everybody.
I think that's fine with all the extras we got. Yeah, that was great.
What a special guy, huh? All right, let me go ahead.
Is he the one that movie is based off? I haven't watched it, but I know there was a recent movie. Guy didn't want to carry guns, but he saved a bunch of people. Yep. That was okay.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but it was an excellent movie, and I think
Hacksaw Ridge, maybe. I think that might be what it's called.
Exactly what it is. Yep, Hacksaw Ridge.
Okay.
Yep. So,
see you, Kay. Again, thanks for staying so late with us.
Yeah,
I understand.
Thank you, Kay.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So, I'm gonna. So we're gonna put an obituary up.
Okay.
I worked in downtown St. Petersburg, Florida, for a number of years as a store manager in a store. Thank you, Icy. And this gentleman would come in, and he was a bit combative, and so after I'd seen him a few times, I just struck up a conversation with him, and I he was always wearing an army jacket, and I asked him if he was in the military, and he said, "Yeah, I was." I said, wow. I said, I love history. I'd love to chat with you if you don't mind. And he spent about 2 hours with me and took me through World War II and Korea. And he was in what's called the Chosun Reservoir in Korea. And what he described to me was changed my life. Korea is the forgotten war, but let's do a quick call out to King George Pittman III.
King George Pittman. Find him here.
Yep.
Was that in order with this, or is that in?
That is it. Sorry, that's in the videos. Or wait, no,
Okay.
no, it's in order. It's in order. It's right below Desmond Doss. You see it?
Got it. Found it. Okay, great.
So, anyways, long story short, he won. Funny story I'll tell you about, but he received the Purple Heart on more than one occasion. He survived the Chosun Reservoir and made the long march back. Chosun Reservoir was basically when the Chinese snuck in and basically surrounded our troops, and we had to fight in front of us and behind us to retreat. And so brutal. A lot of people didn't survive, but anyways, funny story about this guy. He owned like an appliance store, a used appliance store, and somebody came in to rob him. And in the newspaper, they interviewed him, and he said I gave him something they can't spend. And they said, Smith and Wesson. But King George Pittman III, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Good dude. A little bit crazy, but you could see it. You could see it in his eyes, man. But when he was talking to me, his eyes cleared, like he was there. And
man,
I have more appreciation for that than you'll ever know. We got a bunch to get through, so I guess we should probably move. Let's go to James Edmund Johnson.
Okay.
I don't want to rush, but
no, we're moving at a great clip, I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's
we need to
good.
we need to save 8 minutes at the end for a video.
Okay. Noted.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. So Sergeant Johnson, James Edmund Johnson, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as a squad leader in a provisional rifle platoon company composed of artillerymen and attached to Company J in action against enemy aggressor forces. Vastly outnumbered and well entrenched and cleverly concealed enemy forces wearing the uniforms of friendly troops and attacking his platoon's open and unconcealed position, Sergeant Johnson unhesitatingly took charge of his platoon in the absence of the leader, and exhibiting great personal valor in the face of a heavy barrage of hostile fire, coolly proceeded to move about his men, shouting words of encouragement and inspiration, and skillfully directing their fire. Ordered to displace his platoon during the firefight, he immediately placed himself in an extremely hazardous position from which he could provide covering fire for his men. Fully aware that his voluntary action either meant certain death or capture to himself, he courageously continued to provide effective cover for his men and was last observed in a wounded condition, single-handedly engaging the enemy troops in close hand grenade and hand-to-hand fighting. By his valiant and inspiring leadership, Sergeant Johnson was directly responsible for the successful completion of the platoon's displacement and saving of many lives. His dauntless fighting spirit and unfaltering devotion to duty in the face of terrific odds reflect the highest credit upon himself and the U.S. Naval Service. So he
That's
stayed
incredible.
behind. Yep, he stayed behind so his men could live. And that was in 1953, You Damn Knee. All right, let's go
Okay.
to.
He's the
Let's
next
go to.
awarded the next year.
Yep, let's go to Travis Watkins. Okay. Master Sergeant Travis Watkins distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy. When an overwhelming enemy force broke through and isolated 30 men of his unit, he took command, established a perimeter defense, and directed action which repelled continuous fanatical enemy assaults. With his group completely surrounded and cut off, he moved from foxhole to foxhole, exposing himself to enemy fire, giving instructions, offering encouragement to his men. Later, when the need for ammunition and grenades became critical, he shot 2 enemy soldiers 50 yards outside the perimeter and went out alone for their ammunition and weapons. As he picked up their weapons, he was attacked by 3 others and wounded. Returning their fire, he killed all 3 and gathered their weapons. Lost my spot.
Okay.
During a later assault, 6 enemy soldiers gained a deflated spot and began to throw grenades into the perimeter, making it untenable. Realizing the desperate situation and disregarding his wound, he rose from his foxhole to engage them with rifle fire. Although immediately hit by a burst from an enemy machine gun, he continued to fire until he had killed the grenade throwers. With this threat eliminated, he collapsed and, despite being paralyzed from the waist down, encouraged his men to hold on. He refused all food, saving it for his comrades. When it became apparent that help would not arrive in time to hold the position, he ordered his men to escape to friendly lines. Refusing evacuation as his hopeless condition would burden his comrades, he remained in his position and cheerfully wished them good luck. Through his aggressive leadership and intrepid actions, this small force destroyed nearly 500 of the enemy before abandoning their position. Master Sergeant.
Wow.
Master Sergeant Watkins' sustained personal bravery and noble self-sacrifice reflect the highest glory upon himself and is in keeping with the esteemed traditions of the United States. Sorry. All right. So this next one, this was an Inchon, which, long story short, was something that everybody thought MacArthur was crazy for, but it was successful, and it started pushing the North Koreans back. This is Baldomero Lopez of the 5th Marines. He was a first lieutenant. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as a rifle platoon commander of Company A in action against enemy aggressor forces with his platoon, First Lieutenant Lopez was engaged in the reduction of immediate enemy breach defenses after landing with the assault waves. Exposing himself to hostile fire, he moved forward alongside a bunker and prepared to throw a hand grenade into the next pillbox, whose fire was pinning down that sector of the beach. Taken under fire by an automatic weapon and hit in the right shoulder and chest, he lifted his arm to throw the grenade and fell backward and dropped the deadly missile. After a moment, he turned and dragged his body forward in an effort to retrieve the grenade and throw it. In critical condition from pain and loss of blood, and unable to grasp the hand grenade firmly enough to hurl it, he chose to sacrifice himself rather than endanger the lives of his men. With a sweeping motion of his wounded right arm, he cradled the grenade under him and absorbed the full impact of the explosion. His exceptional courage and fortitude, devotion to duty, reflect the highest credit upon First Lieutenant Lopez. He gallantly gave his life for his men and his country.
Wow.
Okay. Let's go through. Let's move on to Vietnam here. We'll go to Dennis Dix. At the time, he was a staff sergeant, but he achieved the rank of major. And this was Chao Doc province in the Republic of Vietnam. This was January 31st, February 1st, 1968. This one's for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in the action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Staff Sergeant Dix distinguished himself by exceptional heroism while serving as a unit advisor. 2 heavily armed Viet Cong battalions attacked the provincial capital city of Chao Phu, resulting in the complete breakdown and fragmentation of the defenses of the city. Staff Sergeant Dix, with a patrol of Vietnamese soldiers, was recalled to assist in the defense of Chao Phu. Learning that a nurse was trapped in a house near the center of the city, Sergeant Dix organized a relief force and successfully rescued the nurse and returned to the safety of the Tactical Operations Center. Being informed of other trapped civilians within the city, Sergeant Dix voluntarily led another force to rescue 8 civilian employees located in a building which was under heavy mortar and small arms fire. Sergeant Dix then returned to the center of the city. Upon approaching a building, he was subjected to intense automatic rifle and machine gun fire from an unknown number of Viet Cong. He personally assaulted the building, killing 6 Viet Cong and rescuing 2 Filipinos. The following day, Sergeant Dix, still on his own volition, assembled a 20-man force and, through under intense enemy fire, cleared the Viet Cong out of a hotel, theater, and other adjacent buildings within the city. During this portion of the attack, Army of the Republic of Vietnam soldiers, inspired by the heroism and success of Staff Sergeant Dix, rallied and commenced firing upon the Viet Cong. Sergeant Dix captured 20 prisoners, including a high-ranking Viet Cong official. He then attacked enemy troops who had entered the residence of the deputy provincial chief and was successful in rescuing the official's wife and children. Sergeant Dix's personal actions resulted in 14 confirmed Vietnam kills and possibly 25 more, and the capture of 20 prisoners, 15 weapons, and the rescue of 14 United States and Free World civilians. The heroism of Sergeant Dix was in the highest tradition and reflects great credit upon the U.S. Army. So he basically went in and saved a bunch
Cleaned
of
out
people.
the city. Saved a
Cleaned
bunch
out
of
the
people.
city. Yeah.
Yeah. And lived.
And lived. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think this one, I think this is let me see before I say something not true here. I think this is a more recent. Let's see. Let me see. I think this is a more recent. Yes, this is a more recent one. More recent inclusion. This was This is a 5th Special Forces Group, Airborne 1st Special Forces. At the time, it was Captain Paris D. Davis, commander of Detachment A321, 5th Special Forces, Airborne 1st Special Forces. Distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as an advisor to the 883rd Regional Force Company, Army of the Republic of Vietnam, during combat operations against an armed enemy in the vicinity of Bong Son, Republic of Vietnam, June 17th and 18th of 1865. Captain Davis and 3 other U.S. Special Forces advisors accompanied the Vietnamese 883rd Regional Force Company on its first combat mission, a daring nighttime raid against a Viet Cong regional headquarters housing a superior enemy force. Captain Davis's advice and leadership allowed the company to gain the tactical advantage, allowing it to surprise the unsuspecting enemy force and kill approximately 100 enemy soldiers. While returning from the successful raid, the Regional Force Company was ambushed and sustained several casualties. Captain Davis constantly exposed himself to small arms fire to rally the inexperienced and disorganized company. He directed both artillery and small arms fire, enabling other elements of the company to reach his position. Although wounded in the leg, he aided the evacuation of other wounded men, but refused medical evacuation himself. Following the arrival of air support, Captain Davis directed artillery fire within 30 meters of his own position in an attempt to halt the enemy advance. Then, with complete disregard for his own life, he braved intense enemy fire to cross an open field, to rescue his severely wounded and immobilized team sergeant. While carrying the sergeant up a hill to a position of relative safety, Captain Davis was again wounded by enemy fire. Despite 2 painful wounds, Captain Davis again refused medical evacuation and remained with the troops, fought bravely, and provided pivotal leadership and inspiration to the Regional Force Company as they repelled several Viet Cong assaults on their position over a series of hours. When friendly reinforcements finally arrived, Captain Davis again refused medical evacuation until he had recovered a U.S. advisor under his command who had been wounded during the initial ambush and presumed dead. While personally recovering the wounded soldier, he found himself severely wounded but still clinging to life. Captain Davis directed the helicopter extraction of the wounded colleague, not leaving the battlefield himself until all friendly forces were recovered or medically evacuated. Captain Davis's heroism and selflessness, above and beyond the call of duty at the risk of his own life, are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself and his unit. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Dagnar, what? Davis was a jump master and expert marksman from the 2 badges before his ribbons. Wow.
And yeah, and also I saw that he had said before that the Dix, the prior person we went over, was SF advisor. Yeah, that's SF.
Right.
He said he could have been Delta before it was called Delta, which would have made sense if he was just single-handedly clearing all the buildings and taking out everybody, saving everybody. Like, the guy was very skilled. Advisor is code. I mean, that's what it feels like. And G2G, thanks for popping through. I see you came in. As we're
Thank you, buddy.
going over the Medal of Honor recipients in honor of the Medal of Honor Museum opening. And as you said, yesterday was a Medal of Honor Day, correct? Yesterday?
Yes. Yeah, it was. So we're going to go ahead and skip the next one, I think,
Okay.
Jeff. It was about James Stockdale. His basically he was a prisoner of war and tried to kill himself so that they couldn't use him as a propaganda tool. Tried to
Wow.
disfigure his face. I kind of wanted to do that quickly so we can kind of move on
Yeah.
to the War
No,
on
that's fine.
Terror.
Okay.
Admiral
And
Stockdale was also a vice presidential candidate. All right, let's. I guess we can kind of cover the last two with the video. So let's go to this gentleman, Paul Ray Smith, Sergeant First Class, Baghdad Airport, April 4th, 2003. Sergeant First Class Smith distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty action with an armed enemy near the Baghdad Airport, Baghdad, Iraq, on 4 April 2003. On that day, Sergeant First Class Smith was engaged in construction of a prisoner of war holding area when his task force was violently attacked by a company-size enemy force. Realizing the vulnerability of over 100 fellow soldiers, Sergeant First Class Smith organized a hasty defense consisting of 2 platoons of soldiers, 1 Bradley fighting vehicle, 3 armored personnel carriers. As the fight developed, Sergeant First Class Smith braved hostile enemy fire to personally engage with the enemy with hand grenades and anti-tank weapons, and organized the evacuation of 3 wounded soldiers from an armored personnel carrier struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and a 60-millimeter mortar round. Fearing the enemy would overrun their defenses, Sergeant First Class Smith moved under withering fire to man a .50 caliber machine gun mounted on a damaged armored personnel carrier. In total disregard for his own life, he maintained his exposed position in order to engage the attacking enemy force. During this action, he was mortally wounded. His courageous actions helped defeat the enemy attack and resulted in as many as 50 enemy soldiers killed, while allowing safe withdrawal of numerous wounded soldiers. Sergeant First Class Smith's extraordinary heroism and uncommon valor are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the 3rd Infantry Division, Rock of the Marne, and the U.S. Army.
damn.
Yep. I think this I believe is another. I believe this is a Special Forces soldier. I believe. Yes. Michael Murphy,
Murphy. Okay.
U.S. Navy SEALs, near Azzottabad, Afghanistan, June 27th and 28th, 2005. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, as the leader of a special reconnaissance element with Naval Special Warfare Task Unit, Afghanistan, on 7 and 28 June 2005, while leading a mission to locate high-level anti-coalition militia leader, Lieutenant Murphy demonstrated extraordinary heroism in the face of grave danger in the vicinity of Azzottabad, Konar Province, Afghanistan. Operating in extremely rugged enemy-controlled areas, Lieutenant Murphy's team was discovered by an anti-coalition militia sympathizer who revealed their position to Taliban fighters. As a result, between 30 and 40 fighters besieged his 4-man team. Demonstrating exceptional resolve, Lieutenant Murphy valiantly led his men in engaging the larger enemy force. The ensuing fierce firefight resulted in numerous enemy casualties, as well as wounding all 4 members of the team. Ignoring his own wounds and demonstrating exceptional composure, Lieutenant Murphy continued to lead and encourage his men. When the primary communicator fell mortally wounded, Lieutenant Murphy repeatedly attempted to call for assistance for his beleaguered teammates. Realizing the impossibility of communicating in the extreme terrain and in the face of almost certain death, he fought his way into open terrain to gain a better position to transmit a call. This deliberate, heroic act deprived him of cover and exposed him to direct enemy fire. Finally achieving contact with headquarters, Lieutenant Murphy maintained his exposed position while he provided his location and requested the immediate support for his team. In his final act of bravery, he continued to keep engaging the enemy until he was mortally wounded, gallantly giving his life for his country and for the cause of freedom. By his selfless leadership, courageous actions, and extraordinary devotion, Lieutenant Murphy reflects great credit upon himself in the highest tradition of the U.S. Naval Forces.
And I see in the chat, Dagnar says, I've seen the drone footage of what he did.
No, that's...
Or is that from the previous one?
I think, no, the drone... that's not... No, that's the next one, Dagnar. That's the last two, Dagnar, yeah. So, I think... What was I can't remember. Video? I think they made a movie about that team, and one person survived, I believe. I can't remember. It was I can't remember the name of the movie, but they made a movie about that one. Okay, so this one is the only known drone footage of a... Yeah, it's okay, Dagnar. They're close. This is John Chapman and Britt Kelly Slabinski. We're going to go to the video, Jeff.
Okay.
And we'll do this. The video, it'll talk about the mission. Slabinski was the person that was trying to support Chapman that you'll see in this video.
Is this the last video available?
This is the last video available. This is what Dagnar was talking about.
A U.S. Air Force combat controller and the SEALs are attempting to rescue their lost teammate.
Go ahead and
watch
pause for a
Chapman's
second,
heroic
Jeff.
actions as he saves the lives.
Yep.
So, long story short, they were coming to land. They were trying to save their teammate. They were hit by their chopper was hit by mortar fire, and that teammate fell out of the chopper and landed like right next to an enemy bunker. So, but this is what they were trying to do. They were trying to go get their teammate. But go ahead. Sorry.
Gotcha. No problem.
Of his entire SEAL team, and then another 18 members of a quick reaction force, earning America's highest award, the Medal of Honor. Chapman and the SEALs exfil their MH-47 helicopter. John is the second individual to exit and immediately moves in the direction of the summit. He can be seen moving off to the right of the screen, alone. The team is taking heavy fire from every direction, as indicated by the arrows, as Chapman begins engaging targets. You can see spent cartridges ejecting from his M4. Chapman then begins closing with the enemy, forcing his way upslope in knee and thigh-deep snow. He is constantly under fire as he does this. Chapman's team leader begins to close on Chapman, following his trail through the snow.
That's Slabinski.
The dark mass above Chapman is a fortified bunker containing 2 enemy fighters, each armed with AK-47s, who are firing down on the team in the darkness. This bunker will come to be known as Bunker Number 1. To the left of the tree and Bunker 1 is another gray mass. This is a rock outcropping that came to be called the Boulder. Between Bunker 1 and this boulder can be seen the body of slain SEAL Mule Roberts. The man Chapman and the others are attempting to recover. Chapman, still alone and closest to the enemy, pauses to engage targets as his team leader follows him, but never actually catches up with him. Chapman, on his own, now makes the decision to charge directly into the enemy bunker, despite withering point-blank fire. Chapman, now literally on top of the enemy, engages the two combatants and kills them, saving the lives of the remaining SEALs. He does this from a distance of no more than 10 feet.
Wow.
These actions by themselves earned him his first Medal of Honor. He then climbs into and takes control of the bunker. Having cleared the immediate threat, Chapman is then joined by his team leader in Bunker 1. You can then see Chapman and his team leader engaging the next bunker, known as Bunker 2, which is situated to the left edge of the screen. This bunker, manned by a handful of Chechen and Uzbek fighters, also contains a heavy PKM machine gun, hand grenades, and rocket-propelled grenades. John Chapman is shot twice at this time in the torso and collapses, incapacitated. You are now looking at a new angle, and at the left of the screen can be seen the two-man fire team and team leader on top of the boulder. Just below it is Bunker 1 with the mortally wounded Chapman. One SEAL can be seen firing his modified M60 machine gun from the hip into Bunker 2 on the right side of the screen until he is struck by grenade shrapnel and tumbles 10 feet off the top of the boulder, collapsing at the feet of his team leader, thus setting off a chain of events that would lead to the SEALs abandoning Chapman on the summit. The wounded SEAL and the team leader can be seen conferring about his injuries. Moments later, the SEALs decide to retreat from the summit because their position is untenable in the face of continued massive enemy firepower. They can be seen moving toward the right side of the screen and passing the body of Neil Roberts. Unfortunately, the SEALs do not pass John Chapman, who is above them and inside Bunker 1. This angle shows three SEALs in a triangle. The larger black heat signature is a smoke grenade. Just to its left is a donkey and dead Al-Qaeda fighter killed by Chapman. The steepness of the mountain can be seen as the SEALs begin to slide down the near sheer face. The team leader, desperate for relief and now with two wounded teammates, asks for uncontrolled airstrikes from an orbiting Air Force AC-130 gunship. The impacts you see are from 105mm howitzer rounds being fired onto the ridgetop in order to save the remaining SEALs. Because neither the SEALs nor gunship know Chapman is alive, he is experiencing these detonations from his position. At approximately 5:20 in the morning, Chapman recovers and begins to engage the enemy. Bunker 1 is on the right side center of the screen and Bunker 2 to the left near the screen center. It will never be known what caused his incapacitation and recovery. Of the two rounds that originally wounded him, at least one was mortal, and at this time he is experiencing severe blood loss and shock. Despite that, he begins his one-man stand against 24 enemy combatants. During this time, Chapman initiates a series of radio calls, many of which are heard by a fellow combat controller and teammate of his and Delta Force operators on a nearby summit. Despite this combat controller's replies, Chapman never acknowledges whether because of damage to his equipment or himself will never be known. This new angle and footage shows Chapman at the top, identified by the green dot under the tree at Bunker 1. The lower center of the screen shows the first enemy fighter who is about to charge Chapman in the hopes of killing the American. The timestamp at the bottom shows it is now 6:05 in the morning and fully light. He's been fighting alone now for 40 plus minutes and has received more gunshot and shrapnel wounds as a result of the fierce combat. This scene shows the second of several enemy charges. In this stunning display of determination and courage, Chapman can be seen fighting hand to hand with the fighter. In the larger screen display can be seen additional enemy moving on to the summit. But right now, John Chapman is fighting for his life. 6 minutes later, in this new shot, Chapman can hear another helicopter approaching the summit. He is in the bottom center of the screen underneath the tree and can be seen in the magnified inset box as he begins his desperate final stand to save the lives of the 18 men on the helicopter. The red dots are enemy fighters. John begins engaging the enemy in multiple directions and is rapidly approaching the last of his ammunition. The helicopter contains a quick reaction force comprised of Rangers, pararescuemen, and another combat controller. It is now 6:13 and the helicopter is short final. The enemy is desperately trying to displace Chapman so they can put heavy weapons or rocket-propelled grenades in Bunker 1 while simultaneously engaging the helicopter. With the choice to save his life or the lives of his unknown comrades, Chapman makes the decision to climb out of the bunker and begin firing in multiple directions as can be seen in the inset. Suffering from as many as a dozen wounds, Chapman is in fact already in the process of dying. As he fights, the helicopter is struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and makes a remarkable controlled crash just below Chapman and the summit. Chapman, now off-screen, continues to cover his comrades as they pour out of the stricken helicopter. Some of them are fatally shot as they exit. These images, with Chapman fighting the enemy at close quarter, are the last to show him alive and in this heroic act, thus qualifying for his second Medal of Honor. Ultimately, Chapman would expend all but the last few rounds of his ammunition, until, finally, after 16 bullet and shrapnel wounds, Chapman succumbs when he is shot through the heart. We will never know his final thoughts or words, but what we do know is his decisions and actions single-handedly saved the lives of 23 comrades.
Wow, that was ridiculous. I mean, I didn't know that story, so I wrote him off as soon as they talked about the other people leaving. And then they're like, yeah, he recovered from his mortal wounds and then started like 2 more assaults on the enemy. That was insane. Couldn't.
Yeah, he's mortally wounded like an hour before he expired.
Right. Jeez, that was
So,
incredible.
Yeah. So, just I guess I appreciate all of you that have come to do this today. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while, and I hope that we shared some things that may be memorable for you. And never forget those men and women that serve us on a daily basis, because they do things that not a lot of people can do.
Awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed Deep Thoughts. We've come basically to the end of the program. Darmac, the historian, living up to the name. Thank you for coming and joining me today. I see Dagnar said there were 2 Delta snipers who awarded the CMH from the Black Hawk down for their acts from the crash and aftermath until rescue happened. Yeah, there was, you said 3,500 roughly awards. So, there's no way we could have gone through everyone, but it was definitely cool to see the history of it and to go through a bunch of the different campaigns. It was definitely a journey. I felt like we went through time together with this one, and it was really cool. I learned a lot of stuff.
Good. All right, everybody. Thanks again, and have a wonderful evening.
If you enjoyed this episode of Deep Thoughts, please leave a like and subscribe. The live program will always be done on Rumble, and you can join the conversation anytime on our Discord server. All the links below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.